the disease you never had to fight, why prevention is the most radical act of love. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start today by introducing you to someone whose courage is quietly changing the conversation around breast cancer in ways that most of us have never even considered. Her name is Sheree Hinton, and she is not just a voice in the wilderness. She is a woman who looked at her family's legacy of loss, grief, and breast cancer and decided that the cycle would end with her. After losing her mother and grandmother to breast cancer, Cherie made a decision that would redefine her entire future. She chose to get genetically tested, discovered she carries a mutation called PLB2, and then made the radical choice to undergo a double mastectomy, breast reconstruction, and a hysterectomy, all before cancer ever had the chance to knock on her door. Cherie calls herself a previvor, a woman who survived a disease she never had. And her story is not just about medical intervention, it is about reclaiming power, rewriting legacy, and refusing to wait for tragedy to make the first move. She is now sharing her story through a powerful memoir, educating women, especially Black women, about genetic testing and prevention, and reminding us all that we are the pillars of our families. And we can no longer allow breast cancer to continue to take us out one by one. Today, I want to share what I learned from Sheree Hinton because her journey reveals something most of us have been taught to ignore, that prevention, not reaction, might be the most powerful form of self love we can practice. Now, here is where things get interesting. We live in a world that celebrates survivors. We honor the fighters, the warriors, the women who battled breast cancer and won, and we should. But what about the women who never had to fight because they chose to act before the battle began? What about the women who looked at their family trees, saw the pattern, and said, I am not waiting for my turn? That is the counterintuitive idea I want to explore with you today. We have been conditioned to believe that strength means enduring, that courage means surviving what life throws at us. But what if real strength is refusing to let life throw it in the first place? What if the most courageous thing a woman can do is not to fight cancer, but to prevent it from ever showing up? Let me take you back to Cherie's story for a moment. After watching breast cancer take her mother and her grandmother, she did not just grieve, she acted, she pursued genetic testing, something many women delay or avoid altogether because of fear, cost, or simply not knowing it exists. When the results came back positive for PALB2, a gene mutation that significantly increases the risk of breast and ovarian cancer, Cherie was faced with a choice. She could wait, monitor, hope for the best, or she could take control. She chose control. She chose prevention. She chose to become a previvor. That's what, think about that word for a second. Previvor. It is not a term most people know, and that is part of the problem. We celebrate survivors because survival is visible. It is dramatic. It is a story with a clear beginning, middle, and end. But prevention is invisible. It is the story that never happens, the diagnosis that never comes, the funeral that never takes place. And because it is invisible, we do not talk about it. We do not honor it. We do not even think about it until it is too late. But here is what Cherie's story teaches us: prevention is not passive, it is not about doing nothing and hoping for the best. Prevention is active, intentional, and often more difficult than treatment itself because it requires you to make life altering decisions based on what might happen, not what has happened. It requires you to trust data over denial, to choose long term safety over short term comfort, and to face your family's medical history with honesty instead of hope. And this is where the conversation gets uncomfortable, especially for Black women, Because for too many of us, survival mode is not just a medical term, it is a way of life. We have been taught to push through, to be strong, to carry everyone else's burdens while ignoring our own. We have been taught that asking for help is weakness, that prioritizing our health is selfish, that taking time to rest or research or advocate for ourselves is a luxury we cannot afford. And so we wait. We wait until the lump appears. We wait until the pain becomes unbearable. We wait until the diagnosis forces us to stop. And by then, prevention is no longer an option. But what if I told you that waiting is not a strategy? What if I told you that hoping for the best is not a plan? What if I told you that survival mode is not sustainable and that prevention, whether it is genetic testing, screening access, or emotional support, is not just a medical decision? It is a radical act of self preservation in a world that teaches women, especially Black women, to put everyone else first. Let me share another story with you. In North Texas, there is an organization called Mammogram Poster Girls, founded by a woman named Sheree Mathis in 2018. Sheree started this all volunteer nonprofit because she saw what Sheree saw, that too many women, especially uninsured and underinsured women, were delaying or skipping breast cancer screenings altogether, not because they did not care, but because they could not afford it. So Sheree and her team decided to remove that barrier. They partnered with health systems like Methodist Health System, Parkland Health, and Hill Regional Hospital, brought mobile mammography units into underserved communities, and funded more than 3,000 breast screening and diagnostic procedures. 3,000. That is 3,000 women who might have waited, who might have delayed, who might have let fear or cost or time keep them from getting checked. But because someone decided that access to prevention mattered, those women got screened. And some of them are alive today because of it. Now, here's what strikes me about this: Mammogram Poster Girls is not a billion-dollar organization. It is not backed by pharmaceutical companies or government grants. It is a group of volunteers who decided that prevention should not be a privilege. And that decision has saved lives, not by treating cancer after it appears, but by catching it early, or better yet, by helping women understand their risk before anything shows up at all. They even created something called the Two Fair Tuesday Initiative, making it easier for women to bring a friend, a sister, a mother, and get screened together. Because prevention is not just personal, it is communal, it is generational, it is a love letter to the women who come after us. And then there is LaDonna Lewis, who founded a Pink Christmas Foundation to support women under 40 who are navigating breast cancer. LaDonna saw a gap in the conversation. She saw that younger women were being overlooked, that they felt isolated and invisible in a disease often associated with older women. So she created a space where they did not have to feel alone. She built a community where young women could share their fear, um, their questions, their grief, and their hope. And in doing so, she reminded us that breast cancer does not wait for you to be ready. It does not care about your age, your plans, or your timeline. But community support and early action can change the outcome. LaDonna's work is a reminder that when we show up for each other, when we create spaces where women can be vulnerable and honest, we are not just supporting individuals. We are shifting culture. We are rewriting the narrative. We are saying that no woman should ever have to face this alone. So here's the thread that connects all three of these stories. Sheree Hinton, I can get you, Sheree Mathis, LaDonna Lewis. They all understood something that most of us resist: that waiting is not a strategy, that hoping for the best is not a plan, that survival mode is not sustainable, and that prevention, whether it is genetic testing, screening access, or emotional support is not just a medical decision. It is a radical act of self preservation in a world that teaches women, especially Black women, to put everyone else first. Now, let me bring this back to you. How many of you know your family's medical history? I mean, really know it? Not just the big stuff, the cancers and heart attacks and strokes, but the patterns, the ages, the details. How many of you have asked your mother, your grandmother, your aunts about what they have survived, what they have hidden, what they have endured in silence? And how many of you have taken that information and done something with it? Have you talked to your doctor? Have you asked about genetic testing? Have you scheduled that mammogram you have been putting off? Because here's the truth: your family history is not just a story, it is data, it is a roadmap, it is a warning system that can save your life if you are willing to listen to it. But most of us do not listen. We tell ourselves we are too busy, too young, too healthy. We tell ourselves that cancer is something that happens to other people, that our family's history does not apply to us, that we will deal with it later. And later becomes too late. Sheree Hinton did not wait for later. She looked at her family's history and said, "This ends with me." She took the test, faced the results, and made the hardest decision of her life, not because she had cancer, but because she refused to let cancer have her. And now she is using her story to educate other women, especially Black women, about genetic testing and about prevention, uh about the power of acting early. She wrote a memoir. She is speaking out. She is showing up because she knows that her story is not just hers. It belongs to every woman who has ever wondered if she is next, every daughter who has watched her mother suffer, every sister who has buried a loved one and thought, "Am I going to be next?" And the answer is maybe. But maybe does not have to mean powerless. Maybe can mean informed. Maybe can mean proactive. Maybe can mean that you take control of your health before your health takes control of you. So here's what I want you to take away from this. First, know your family history and act on it early. A strong family history is not just a sad story, it is a signal. It is your body's way of telling you to pay attention, to ask questions, to get tested. Do not wait for symptoms. Do not wait for a diagnosis. Do not wait for permission. Ask your doctor about genetic counseling. Ask about testing. Ask about your options. Because knowledge is not just power, it is survival. Second, prevention is power. For people with inherited risk, preventive decisions are not extreme, they are strategic, they are life saving. They are a way to protect not just your life, but your fertility, your future, your family. And yes, they are hard. They require sacrifice, they require courage, but they also require you to believe that your life is worth protecting before it is threatened. That is not fear talking. That is love. That is reverence. That is the kind of softness that comes not from surviving, but from never having to fight in the first place. And third, your story can save someone else's life. Speaking openly about testing, about risk, about prevention helps normalize conversations that too many women delay out of fear or lack of information. When you share your story, you give someone else permission to ask the questions they have been too afraid to ask. You give them permission to prioritize their health. You give them permission to choose themselves. And in a world that constantly tells women to shrink, to silence themselves, to wait their turn, choosing yourself is revolutionary. Now, I want to pause here and ask you something. What if the most powerful legacy you could leave is not what you survived, but what you prevented? What if the bravest thing you ever do is not endure a battle, but refuse to enter one? What if the greatest act of love you could show your children, your family, your community is to prioritize your health so fiercely that you are still here, whole and well, to love them back? Because here's the thing: Sheree Hinton did not wait. Sherry Mathis did not wait. LaDonna Lewis did not wait. They saw a need, a gap, a pattern, and they acted. And because they acted, their lives are being saved, stories are being rewritten, legacies are being changed. They did not wait for permission. They did not wait for the perfect time. They did not wait for someone else to lead. They stepped up, they spoke out, they chose themselves. And in doing so, they chose all of us. So here's my question for you: what family history, symptom, or unanswered question are you waiting on? That could become the reason you finally ask for genetic testing, screening, or a second medical opinion today. What are you waiting for? What is stopping you from taking the first step toward prevention, toward power, toward the kind of life that is not defined by what you endured, but by what you chose? Because the truth is, you do not have to wait for a diagnosis to take action. You do not have to wait for a crisis to prioritize your health. You do not have to wait for permission to choose yourself. You can be the woman who breaks the cycle. You can be the woman who refuses to wait for tragedy to make the first move. You can be the woman who chooses prevention, who chooses power, who chooses herself, not out of fear, but out of love, out of reverence, out of the deep, unshakable belief that your life, your health, of your future is worth protecting. And I want to be clear: this is not about living in fear. This is not about obsessing over every symptom or becoming paranoid about every possibility. This is about being informed. This is about being proactive. This is about understanding that knowledge is not a burden, it is a gift. It is the difference between reacting and responding. It is the difference between hoping and knowing. It is the difference between surviving and thriving. So go home today and ask the questions, make the calls, schedule the appointments, have the conversations, talk to your mother, talk to your grandmother, talk to your aunts, ask them what they have survived. Ask them what they have hidden. Ask them what they wish they had known sooner. And then take that information and do something with it. Do not let it sit in the back of your mind as something you will deal with later. Do not let fear or cost or time be the reason you wait, because prevention is not about what you survive. It is about what you never have to face. And that, my friends, is the most powerful story of all. Sheree Hinton stood at a crossroads. She could have waited. She could have hoped. She could have told herself that maybe it would not happen to her, but she did not. She chose to act. She chose to know. She chose to prevent. And because of that choice, she is here today, whole and well, sharing her story, saving lives, and reminding us all that we are the pillars of our families. And we deserve to be here, healthy and strong, for as long as possible. So I'm asking you today, what will you choose? Will you wait or will you act? Will you hope or will you know? Will you survive or will you prevent? Because the power is in your hands. The choice is yours and the time is now. Do not let another day go by without asking the questions that could save your life. Do not let another year pass without taking the steps that could change your future. Do not let another generation carry the burden of a legacy that you have the power to rewrite today. You are worth it. Your family is worth it. Your future is worth it. And prevention, my friends, is the most radical, the most powerful, the most loving act you can choose. So choose it. Choose yourself. Choose life. Choose now.